Hello and welcome to Family Business Talk. We're the podcast where we talk about family business and we interview entrepreneurs and really dive into what they stand for, their backstory, and where they're going. Today, I'm your host, Lucas Obregon. This is Enzo, and we're from the Católica School of Business in Lisbon. And we have a special guest, Marcus Kemper, CEO of Field Camp. And I want to make it justice, and I want to have him introduce himself so the guest knows what he's about and who he really is.
Well, thank you very much for this introduction. As you just said, my name is Marcus Kemper. It's not, although I live in Portugal, it's not your typical Portuguese name. And the reason for that is that my father, or my parents, they moved to Portugal in 1964 when I was 9 months old. I was born in Venezuela. My father worked at a big multinational company called Hux at the time, one of the big four pharmaceutical chemical companies worldwide. And I've stayed here literally ever since, right? So I then went and I went to the German school in Lisbon. So I've got the German Abitur, with which I tried to study in the US, which I eventually did. I studied in Hartford, Connecticut. I studied marketing. I think back then it was a different course, and I didn't know what I wanted to study. So I think that was a good decision, because I found out that I really didn't want to study marketing. I didn't like marketing at the end. Okay. And then I came back, and I became an entrepreneur by accident. After I got back to Lisbon, I did an internship. I then wanted to move on and get an MBA at INSEAD. And I wanted to basically follow my father's footsteps of working for a big multinational company like Procter & Gamble or Nestle or something like that, consumer goods. And I became an entrepreneur by accident, because I met a gentleman who had he sold used mainframes, right? So he sold used mainframes, and he had just opened up an office in Portugal. And he was looking for a new CEO. That's a very fancy word for a two-man show, but that's what it was. And he said, well, why don't you give it a shot? Instead of your internship, you work for me for 2 years, and then you can go about and do your MBA or whatever. And that's what I did. I became very successful in what I did in the IT world, and I ended up staying here. So I married, had 2 kids, and stayed in Portugal, didn't pursue an international career. And did something I really didn't like, because when I was in college, and back then I had an IT class where we were taught how to handle Lotus 123, which is an Excel sheet competitor, or was an Excel sheet competitor. And when I graduated, I really hated IT, and I thought to myself, or I said to myself, I will hopefully never ever have to use a computer again. And bang, I fell right into this IT world. Sure. And then I sold the company when I was 40 years old, so 20 years ago. And I had been very successful in what I did, because I did this brokerage thing for about 2 years, and then again by accident, I got into the storage management and communication world in the mainframe environment, and we represented a number of international companies. Like, some of them still exist, like Hitachi, but others don't, like Storage Tech. And so we started selling storage solutions for mainframes in Portugal. And we had an unbelievable market share at the time of over 90%. And we were literally a worldwide reference. I mean, I got an invitation from the IBM CEO, who invited me over to have a chat with me on how we managed to have such a large market share with competing products. And then 20 years ago, there was a Spanish company that made me an offer, and I sold it. And I did realize that I had been very successful in the IT business, and I did develop this little fear over time that, well, I had been good in the IT business, but did I know how to do anything else? And so back then I decided to diversify, and since then I have obviously, I can imagine, speak about a company called Philcamp in a little while, but I got into the industry, I got into real estate, agriculture with a farm in Brazil, in Argentina, I apologize, um, uh, beauty clinics, and I'm part of a number of nonprofit organizations. So basically, what I did, I diversified and realized that life is not about a specific industry, but about managing people and stuff like that. So I'm 60 years old now. I've got 2 kids, which are a lot older than you are. We just realized that. And thank you very much for inviting me over for this little chat.
For sure.
Thank you so much, Marcus, for that. And just jumping back a little bit into the initial beginnings of your career when you had that opportunity to become an entrepreneur by accident, which not a lot of us have that opportunity, of course.
There's a lot of good accidents.
Just to make sure we're on the same page. So that wasn't your father's company, right?
No, it was not. No. Höchst was one of the big 4 multinationals in the pharmaceutical chemical world. Like Höchst was on par with BASF and Bayer and DuPont, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was
a pharmaceutical company?
Yeah, pharmaceutical and chemical. And so he was the country manager, so to speak. Right?
Okay, yeah, and regarding that, I guess, so you had an internship, or you had an opportunity, I guess, to work there. And how was it like for you, as having just such a great opportunity, I guess, to work with that company? Like, how was it for you in terms of just like progression for your future? Were you thinking more like, okay, that could be a great stepping stone for something else I want to do later in life? Or was it more just, you just took it?
I have to admit, I didn't think that far, right? I mean, I was 20-something years old, and I started working on my own, and while still living at home, I started making a ton of money, whatever that means in Portuguese terms, right? But a lot more than I had expected. So, because when I graduated, believe it or not, my biggest worry was, will I ever be able to buy a motorcycle, right? I'm a big motorcycle fan, right? So that was my big goal, to be able to buy a motorcycle.
That was the priority.
And once you bought it, you were like, okay.
I managed to buy one or the other in the meantime. But so this was like a big puzzle, and the pieces fell into place, and I just kept on going, right? And so I started to work on my own. I started having success. I started hiring people. And then I started pushing this MBA project out. And one thing led to another, and all of a sudden I had 10 people working with me. And obviously the MBA in France didn't make any more sense. And then in the meantime I got married, and then my life changed, took on different dynamics, and I ended up staying. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna do this internship, I'm gonna work. Well, at the time I worked for the German company that after a few months went bankrupt, and then that's when I became an entrepreneur. I didn't make any long-term plans. I lived it basically on the daily life, and with a lot of hard work and common sense, and luck, I guess, I became relatively successful, and that's why I just pursued that path.
Mm-hmm. And I guess becoming an entrepreneur, like when you had the opportunity to become an entrepreneur, did you also have the opportunity to join your father's business at the time? And if so, how was that, like, going around that decision-making process for those potential successors that are watching?
Yeah, well, again, it's chance and luck. And my father eventually retired from Höchst when he was 65 years old. And the entire Höchst group fell apart, right? So Höchst no longer exists.
Okay.
It was sold off in pieces. And the Höchst group at the time was composed of 11 companies in Portugal. And there was this monofilament department that manufactures monofilaments. So the easiest product to a fishing line is a polyamide fishing monofilament, right? And that was going to be sold off. right? And my father at the time was retired, and he came up to me and said, "Look, me and two other people, we would like to buy this business unit from Höchst. I would like to become an entrepreneur at the age of 65, which again is courageous. Would you like to join us?" And I was very busy selling whatever I was selling in the IT business, right? And I said, yeah. And at the time, he said, we'll do this 50-50. You and I will have 50%, and the other two will have 50%. I said, no, that's a no-go. Because knowing you having 50% will not work. I will join you guys if we have 51%, and this is exactly what happened. And then he ran it for 20 years, right? So I had no desire to join the company. I was a shareholder. I went to some meetings, but he was running it on our behalf. He was the CEO for 20 years. And I had no desire whatsoever to join the company. I was busy doing my own stuff.
What changed?
What changed? Well, first of all, my father died. That's obviously a big change. He died 5 years ago, and I did sell my IT business 20 years ago, and I did a number of different things. And Philcamp is a monofill company that manufactures monofilaments for the paper industry. And believe it or not, we're very small. We only have a turnover of 27 million euros. But in that segment, we're world leaders, right? So we're number one in the world. I'm very proud to say that. And it's a very well-run company, very well managed. And it was basically natural to step in and to run it, right? And that's exactly what I did.
So just from what I heard, and because also we talked before, I would consider you to be a people person.
Oh, thank you very much. I assume that's positive.
Yeah, it's definitely positive. But I think it's also interesting. How do you think once you had went into leadership, how does that impacted your decisions, and like what kind of decisions did you take based on people?
Well, wow. Let's speak about Philcamp, because that's where I think I saw the biggest changes. My father had a complete different leadership style, right? He ran the company and he based his decisions on, or he motivated people based on the amount of shares he had, right? So you got into a discussion, and he was brilliant, right? He made a lot of fantastic decisions and took the company where it is today. But basically, if you got into an argument with him and you did not agree with him, he said, well, I've got 51%. So unfortunately, it's the way I want it to be, right? It's like, and that's what I believe changed, because I don't believe in that type of hard selling. And I think at Philcamp, nowadays we are three shareholders. I've got 51%, I've got two other shareholders, which have the remainder 49%. And we are completely aligned. We've got skin in the game, we're in this for the long run, etc. So we are aligned. And these three shareholders are also on the board of directors. But on the board, we also have people that are not shareholders. But I believe that we all should have one vote, and the biggest number of votes wins. Because I believe that all people sitting around that table have a lot of common sense, are very intelligent, and try to make the best possible decision for the company. So I have to respect their opinion as much as I want them to respect my opinion. So, as I said, it's one man, one vote, majority wins, regardless of what types of share we have. And I can tell you that over the past 5 years, and we meet on a very regular basis, multiple times a week, we haven't had one discussion, and we were always aligned. And the company is just now facing its challenges, difficult challenges, but at least the management team is completely aligned.
That's great.
Yeah,
No, that's great to hear. And how was the transition when your father had passed away, and developing this? Like, was there any resistance to the change in ways the company was being managed? For example, like the 51%. saying, right?
Well,
that your father would
people
say.
didn't have a lot of say, but the company was very profitable and they felt very safe. And obviously, they looked at me. Obviously, I'm not a spring chicken anymore, but they looked at me, and I had all different kinds of ventures and traveled the world. And my father was there every day from 8 till 7 p.m. and he was very dedicated. And they looked at me and they wondered whether, well, they didn't have a lot of say, but they felt very safe, right? So they all all workers made a decent amount of money, which increased on a yearly basis, and the company was profitable, turnover increased, and EBITDA was very decent. And they were just scared that I would either sell the company or not be as dedicated as my father was. But as soon as they realized that that I was in this in the long run, they basically relaxed and business went on with all its challenges.
Great, yeah, and we were also just wondering in terms of just decision making, how is it like to keep the objectivity of the decisions being made for the company? Do you just have the board of directors, or is there also some other ways of keeping things objective for the company when
Well,
making?
we obviously try to hear the entire
decisions.
structure, right? But I deal mainly with the board of directors, and with whomever wants to speak with me. But basically, it's the board of directors.
Is there any other family members that also involved in the company?
Well, no. I've got 2 kids. My son works in New York in the finance world, and my daughter is developing her own health platform, which is a complete different thing. And they have not yet expressed the desire to join the company. In fact, I have to admit that, unlike many other entrepreneurs, I don't believe they have to live my dreams. This is my thing, right? Everything is always up for sale, right? It's and they have to live their own dreams, and they have to be successful on their own. And they like completely different stuff than I do. Right? I would never work in the finance world. It's not what moves me. So no, they haven't had the desire to join any of my projects.
Do you think it could change? Because, for example, you yourself, you did change at the end.
Eventually. I think I'm far too young to think about that. And, I have no idea. Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't think things are static, right?
Yeah.
I'm not one of those entrepreneurs that believes that his companies have to be in the family for multiple generations. I believe, as this is exactly what I did with the IT business, somebody paid a lot more than I thought the company was worth. I sold it. And this is what I would probably do with each and every company I own and run, right? And there are other opportunities with I just invest into something else. But basically, I think they have to do their own stuff. If they don't want to work in the family business, we'll just have to find a professional manager or a professional team that does it. Yeah. And I'm certain we'll find some people.
Also, just for curiosity, because of your son and your daughter, what do you think kind of values did they learn from you that you had before in those companies, as well as like in work and professional and in private life? What do you think you see in them as well?
I think they're very hard workers. They work their butt off. They really do, regardless of whether they're successful or not. But they have a lot of common sense, and they listen to people. And I think that's a key for success. You have to be able to listen, respect your colleagues or your colleagues or employees, and you have to work hard. Nothing is for free these days. If you don't want to work hard, you have to pay in the lottery or buy bitcoins without knowing what they really stand for, or something like that, and hope to be lucky.
I don't know if that's the way of success.
No, of course not. But it's. I would say that nowadays, if you want to be successful, I mean, in 80% of the cases, you have to work a lot, and you have to have a vision, and you have to respect people.
Thanks for those insights.
It's common sense, but it's what it sounds very simple, but it's
not very simple.
Not everyone understands it. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. And moving on to more about Film Camp, we were just curious with the rise of AI in the world, right, in general, if you plan on implementing that with the monofilaments, and if not, how do you see your competitors, for example?
I think there is no place for AI in my company. Fish will not bite a fishing line based on AI. No, it's no, AI is obviously it's obviously a big buzzword, and it will change the world literally, but not at Philcamp. So basically, what Philcamp manufactures is monofilaments for the paper industry. With our there are companies out there that with our monofilament manufacture paper machine clothing, which are then installed in the paper machines, and we also manufacture abrasive brushes. And unfortunately, there is no place for AI in our company. I wish there was. I'm a big fan of AI.
Maybe, who knows? Depends on how it develops. But I'm curious, just from your years of you have been all over the place, you've worked in very different places. What do you think is the proudest moment that you have, where you say this is a moment where really I did something that I'm really proud of?
I'll tell you what I'm really proud of. I had the IT business for over 20 years. I didn't have a single person that quit. Period.
Whoa.
And I'm very proud of that. It's not measured by, obviously we all have proud moments when you close a deal you're after for a few months and the margins are good, or you get a new customer, this or the other. I feel especially proud when I feel that people like to work with me. And having a team, at the end we were like 55 people, and not a single person quit. Well, obviously they quit because they moved away for family reasons, but they didn't quit because they were unsatisfied or anything like that. And that, I think that made me very proud.
And how did you make that happen, Marcus?
Treating people well, paying them well, and respecting them, and valuing their work. Because when people work, I believe we all work also for financial reasons. I mean, you have to, first of all, you have to wake up on Monday mornings and you want to go to work, right? So it has to be fun. It has to be challenging. You have to give people the opportunity to work on something that challenges them. But besides that, it's obviously money. You have to pay them well for what they do. And then you have to respect them. Again, coming back to the core values.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is there's not only intrinsic motivation, but also extrinsic motivation as well for everyone, for employees when working for a company.
True.
And it's definitely something that must not be tough to be a leader and have no one quit on you, because there's so many things that can go wrong in a company.
It's what you said. If you're a people person, right? If you're a people person, this comes easy.
Make things happen.
Yeah. It's.
And did you grow up with that sort of these ways of?
Your father was not in the.
No, he was not a people person.
Right.
That's right. No. I mean, he was a brilliant man, but I would say that his emotional intelligence was not way up there. No. Right. This is I had this probably from my mother's side. My mother was a people person, so it's and then it comes natural.
Yeah. I also assume because when you did the startup with the other person, you're working very close if you're a small team, and then you have to get along with the people, have to understand them.
I think you always have to get along with the people. It's if you don't get if you get. I mean, talking about entrepreneurship and succession, the biggest problem entrepreneurs have when they move on to second generations and third generations, when you have lots of family members working in the company, is that there are wars between family members of who's in charge and who's not, right? And all of a sudden, all the core values of the company are forgotten. because they will just concentrate on their little war and who wins this little war and who has power and who's not. I know of companies that brothers that will not speak to each other. That one brother will get upset if the sales manager speaks to his other brother, and the company is literally going down the drain. It's a big multinational company in Germany whose name I'd rather not mention, but this is what's going on. So getting along with people is very important.
And I'm sure because it was you and your father at one point. You guys were working together during the business, right?
I would say there was a transition phase.
Okay.
Because I mean, he didn't stop to work overnight. This was related to health issues, and then he was in and out in hospitals. And I did make him a promise, though, when he was still healthy. I said, "Look, I do whatever I want to do, or I feel like I need to do, but the day you need me, I'll be there." And so when he went to hospital, so I moved into, I went there. I started to work at the company. Then he came back, and then it didn't go as well as I thought it could go, because he thought I was a menace for his leadership. And then I pulled back, because I certainly didn't want to fight him. It was his baby, it was his project, and for as long as he wanted to be there, he should be there. But he saw me as a threat, for sure.
And how was it for you dealing with that?
Well, I don't want to sound arrogant or anything like that, but I was so diversified, and I had so much. I was so successful in my own terms, because success should not be measured, because otherwise, if you're not Elon Musk, you're just a failure, right? But in relative terms of what I believed I should achieve, I was very successful, that I didn't feel threatened. So I didn't need that. I saw that basically as a promise I had made, paying respect to him, that I would fulfill my promise that when he needs me, I'd be there. And so basically, when he came back from hospital and sat in his chair again and became very worried that I would challenge him, I said, "Look, do you, I do me. And if you ever need me again, I'll be back."
So just to end it off, a lot of people that are watching are students right now. They're finishing their masters, their bachelors. What do you think is the biggest advice you can give them?
Well, I'm coming back to these few pillars. It's work hard, focus, respect, and try to have as much common sense as possible in your personal life as well as your professional life.
Yeah.
Basically, that's it.
Thank you.
And then the pieces of the puzzle will hopefully fall into place.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
And now turning to you, thank you very much for watching. This was Family Business Talks. I hope you can tune in next episode. And thank you very much.
Thank you.